I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. And this feels like a difficult thing for me to say, given that I have mainly grown up in a very, very politically charged, very, very far leftist, liberal community and area of the world for most of my life. And we live in a very polarized world today, politically and in many other ways. And that's a reflection of our internal worlds and how we can polarize or demonize parts of ourselves and shove them into boxes instead of listening for what might be underneath the surface of thoughts or urges or feelings. I made a video yesterday about a little bit about No Bad Parts, the book by Richard Schwartz. And that book talks about how we can come into more harmony and healing with ourselves by talking to different parts of ourselves, younger parts of ourselves, traumatized parts of ourselves that are stuck in old situations or don't know where we are at in life now, or who we are now, or how old we are, and how everyone essentially has a light within themselves, an essence, a soul, a spirit, whatever you really want to call it, that the assumption that people are, that comes from the mono-mind idea that Richard Schwartz talks about how we are one mind and one person, and that these different thoughts or urges come from this one mind. He talks about it like there's different parts of ourselves that are shaped by our environments, by our experiences, and a lot of times trauma or the culture that we live in can shape those parts of ourselves to not be in alignment with ourselves, or to be frozen in traumatic reactions or protective parts of ourselves, and that can really trap us and from living out of alignment with our true self or more real self or with our purpose. And he describes like the capital S self as that's kind of like our purpose or our spiritual being, but you don't even have to believe in something spiritual. It's just seeing that there is a light within all of us and choosing to see that in other people, and that other people who may have narcissistic tendencies or mean tendencies or whatever it might be, that these parts are just protective mechanisms that are protecting them from a wounded or hurt inner child, or from feeling immense pain, or feeling the pain of the earth, of how we're destroying the earth, because so many people today are just totally dissociated from that because there's no space or container to feel that grief or that pain. And there are some spaces and containers for that, but it's not culturally the norm at all. It's just this materialistic culture. I mean, especially where I am in the States, because it's totally different in different places, but this is mainly like Western culture, especially the United States where I've lived and grown up. And just opening to ourselves to compassion and love and seeing this capital S self naturally brings healing and kindness and love and compassion in ourselves. And a lot of the times we're polarizing ourselves when we're shaming or shutting down parts of ourselves or making it a bad habit instead of looking at what might be underneath that, or how that might have been a protective mechanism that a part of us is frozen in time, and getting curious and opening ourselves to healing in that way. This is I don't know if this is even making sense. It might be. I might be getting a bit too out there with these ideas without grounding it in something tangible. I'm not exactly sure if this is totally making sense. I don't know. If you're someone who's watching this video, let me know if this is making sense in the comments. But I might need to, I tend to get really big with my ideas and move very quickly, but I need to ground it in something more tangible and slow down a bit, because this is a lot of theory. So, also, hi. Hey, I'm Summer Karen. This is my YouTube channel that I'm creating, And all of this said, this is my video about why I am a fan of Elon Musk. And I'm a very earthy, crunchy, hippie person raised in a very, very leftist, liberal place in the country. And in that community, in my school, going to private school and feeling it was very, very, very leftist, very liberal in private school. And they could kind of make it that way too, because it wasn't like public school where you had to be like non-regulated. You had to be regulated in some way to not be political, but very, very leftist, politically charged. And that's what I grew up believing was like the right way for a long time. And now I'm much more in the middle with it, where I just don't, well, actually, I'm just kind of outside the box with it, where I don't believe in the current political system at all in the States, and how it globally polarizes other countries, how it polarizes people and pits them against each other and divides us and keeps us all distracted in this loop of just hating each other and tearing each other down. And it's getting more and more and more and more extreme. And like the president today, Donald Trump, like, I mean, he's just an example of someone who has a lot of wounded parts and a lot of behaviors that are protecting his inner children that are in immense pain in some way. And people are really demonizing him and hating him, or they're really, really loving him and putting him on a pedestal. And I'm like, whoa, this is a big example of someone of like where our country is at, kind of like where the collective consciousness of the states is at, really. But he's just kind of an example of someone who's in tremendous pain and doesn't know how to do the inner work or the inner healing, and then is like taking that out on other people. And then that's globally how our world can work too, or how, just sticking with the states, like the prison system of the states, where it's just like polarizing people and making them wrong and being like, let's just isolate them and outcast them and shove them in a box and like treat these people horribly in prisons, instead of looking at the light within them and looking at their burdened parts that were acting out in a survival mechanism way that landed them in prison in the first place, and teaching them how to do the inner work to transform those parts and become productive members of society. It's just so severed and polarizing. And so coming back to my point of why I think Elon Musk is so inspiring, he definitely has flaws. I'm very, very into, I'm creating my brand, The Bougie Hippie, right now, that is all about like non-toxic, ethically made, ethically sourced, in harmony with the earth, giving back to humanity and the earth. Very, very earthy, crunchy. Like I have very strong values about treating other people well, treating animals well, treating the earth well, and giving back. And so like Elon Musk, not super in alignment with that at all. We have some very, very different values. And he's an example of someone who's like, some of his parts are really numb to the suffering of the world, and like how the batteries in his cars are made in really unethical ways from my perspective, and how there's like animal testing and all these things that I really, really don't agree with. And I'm like, whoa, don't ethically align with this person. And also recognizing that he's a person too, and that these parts of him that have gone numb and are probably protecting his wounded inner child in some ways, and can't feel the pain of the earth because his nervous system doesn't have the capacity to handle it yet, and he doesn't know how to do that inner work, and he doesn't have the capacity to yet. And also recognizing though, these ethical concerns, they aren't specific to him. It's a cultural thing. He's just another person in the whole culture of it. And it's cultural indoctrination too that he's fallen into. And he, it's not all him. It's not specific to him. And people are like, well, he has like the most money in the world right now. So like, I don't know, they put a lot of weight on that or something. And then there was all this political thing of how he was doing stuff in the government, which really made people politically hate him. But that's kind of like irrelevant to me. So I don't know, maybe it's like a step towards dismantling the government and the way that it stands today, because I don't agree with it. So maybe it's even a step towards our liberation, even though it's more painful in the moment. I don't know, maybe. But looking at him, I feel very inspired because Elon Musk, he's essentially just some like nerdy dude who is making money from his passions and his interests of engineering and being nerdy and inventive and creating an interesting style for cars too. Like you can just tell by the way that his cars are designed that he's passionate about it and that he's interested in it and that he cares about it, and having this big idea of like, oh, maybe we could bring humanity to Mars to like save the planet. I mean, I totally don't agree with that, but it's an interesting thought process, and there's a lot of creativity in it, and there's a lot of passion in it, and there's a lot of drive. And that is so interesting to me, how someone could have that perspective and just so much creativity with it. There's so much creativity, and creating self-driving vehicles that can talk to each other, so it's actually a lot safer to drive. And like, I was in a horrible car crash when I was 17, which it was actually this big enlightening moment for me in my near-death experience, and I feel very grateful for it. But I also died and I came back to life. And so like, highway driving, it's super unsafe. Car driving, there's so much human error in traffic today. Like, traffic could be completely eradicated if it wasn't for human error. And all the cars wouldn't have to stop or start at stoplights. They would all just be syncing and communicating with each other and self-driving as a unit. And it's like the intercommunication of it all. There would be much more harmony, much more ease. People would have more freedom, more time. They could have more financial freedom because they wouldn't have to spend their time driving, and they could spend their time creating. And I think it's a great idea. I think that the world would be more harmonious if there was just self-driving cars that were communicating with each other. And so it wouldn't have to take up our human mental energy, and there wouldn't be any traffic, and there wouldn't be accidents, and it probably wouldn't be perfect, but I think it's a great idea. It's just, how are we fueling that? How are we fueling the cars? Like, can it be from the ionosphere? Can it be like green energy? Like, he kind of has the idea of like, okay, like more green energy with the batteries, but the batteries still aren't great. They're not ethically made. Like, they're creating more waste. So it's like, we can do better. Like, it's a step in the right direction, but we could do a lot better. There's so much potential for creative genius and interconnection of authentic creative ideas today, because there's so many humans on Earth, and that's where innovation comes from. It's like the intersection of all of our creative minds coming together, and there's so much potential for that and vastness for that with all the humans on Earth today. It's like all these big global issues could be solved so simply if we came into more harmony with ourselves and with each other, and the school system was nurturing our authentic creativity instead of teaching us uncreative behaviors. Like, NASA did a study in the 1900s where they tested 5-year-olds for genius, and 98% scored as genius. And then as the ages went up, the genius levels went down until only 2% of adults were genius. And NASA's definition of genius was just creative problem solving. And there's so much potential for creativity today. We just have to refine that creativity within ourselves and find new creative ways to raise children where they're not on screens, and where they're in nature and in community and interconnecting and creating ideas together and like innovating. Like, that could help save our world. And there's super multifaceted, so many pieces to it. But what I love about Elon Musk is he's so empowered in his creativity and in his passions and in his drive of moving humanity forward, because we need to move forward. We're so stuck in the past, and it's limiting us, and it's killing our planet, and we're killing each other, and we're fighting, and there's wars, and there's stunted innovation and stunted growth. Like, our whole growth as a whole is stunted by the school system. And Elon Musk is really wanting to change that, and wanting to help humanity move forward, and helping people have creative ideas. And he is essentially someone who's just living, letting his authentic creative genius and passion fuel his income, and radically going towards that, and not caring what other people think. And he's the person with the most money in the world right now. Like, granted, not all of it's in liquid, like most of it's in like stocks and blah blah blah, but he has an incredible amount of social capital and influence and resources. And he's someone who's just letting his passions and creativity fuel his income. which I find so creatively inspiring. And a lot of people could learn from that. It could help people. Like, I remember I was talking with people last summer who are also raised in very leftist liberal cultures and kind of subscribing to that for right now, and that's fine, that's okay. But they were really hating, shaming Elon Musk, and I was talking about how I want to have my passions and my creativity fuel my income, and I want to learn how to create that as a different conversation. And people are like, the same people who were shaming Elon Musk and polarizing him and making him wrong and bad and saying horrible things about him and how he should die and be killed and like very polarizing things. They were also people who felt hopeless that your passions and your creativity can't fuel your income, because they were saying that's so rare in this world. And I think a big part of that is from the school system and lots of other things and cultural indoctrination and so on. But they were feeling kind of hopeless that that wasn't possible for them because of the world that we live in and how that's a rare thing. And also, Elon Musk is doing that though. Elon Musk is having his passions and his creativity fuel his income, and he's doing pretty well with the money part of it. And there could definitely be more ethical things, definitely. I'm not in alignment with that. And also, there's a lot to learn there. There is a lot of inspiration there, and that's so exciting to me, how he is sitting there as an example to inspire people. And people are so afraid of that in a way, they're just polarizing him. And I'm sure there are a bunch of people too who are inspired from him and looking up to him, and that just wasn't the culture that I was raised in. But I'm sure there's millions and millions of people who are seeing it that way. And also, like, you could look at Elon Musk, like, even if like you're a leftist liberalist and like want like us to come in more harmony with the earth and like live in like tiny homes and stuff, like you could look at him as inspiration to be like, wow, there is a way to have my passion fuel my income and be successful with it. And maybe my passion is helping people downsize and be minimalists and live in tiny homes and come into more harmony with nature and like small communities around the earth and grow food together. Like, that's so cool, and that's more ethically aligned with me personally. But someone who's even not ethically aligned with him could look at him for inspiration. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing, how creative his ideas are. I guess that's my video for today. But yeah, I think it's dangerous too, how polarizing we are of people today, and the culture in the States especially, and how that can really limit our growth as people, instead of looking at the whole person and looking with compassion, or looking at the light within them instead of just their wounded or protective parts, instead of seeing that as the totality of who they are, because we have so much more depth than that. We have so much more creativity than that. And if we looked at people as teachers and what can we learn from them, even if we don't agree with them, I think we would be more empowered as individuals, and I think that our world would be more harmonious, and we would be able to interconnect with each other more and innovate more, and kind of accept our differences, and that being okay, even if it's like, wow, like Elon Musk is supporting whole institutions and stuff that I really don't believe in, of like creating more trash, like basically slave labor for the creation of the batteries in the cars, and like things that I'm like, whoa, I really don't align with that. And also look at these creative, innovative ideas, and that is so inspiring too, and both can be true. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Yeah. Okay, well, that's why I would say I'm a fan of the light within Elon Musk, the passion, the joy, the creativity. I'm not a fan of all parts of him, but you know, if I were to meet him, I would want to talk to those parts with kindness and compassion and get underneath of maybe why his nervous system has to feel numb to these bigger things, and maybe with compassion help him open up to feeling more of himself, or maybe that would come in more harmony with earth. Maybe that's just my agenda of healing, I don't know. But I think there's a lot to be learned there, and there's a lot of self-empowerment that we can do in just our view of the world. So, alright, I hope anyone who watches this video, I wish you the best. Alright, bye.